Hi guys, I'm MonteCristo from ggChronicle, and with me, as many of you probably know, is Jatt. So say hi, Jatt.
How's it going, guys?
So as you know, Jatt was recently hired by Riot Games, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what your job duties are. So what's your title?
My title is Associate Game Analyst, so I'm doing QA, which is Quality Assurance for the live design team.
And on your day-to-day work schedule, what do you have? So you come in the morning, and what do you do?
Yeah, so it's pretty variable with Riot Games from day to day, but there is, we do play testing, we evaluate the live balance of the game, we evaluate the balance of the upcoming champions. And then my specific hit today, I talk a lot with designers about like opinions. Like one thing about Riot Games is QA gets a lot of say on other positions that are not just test mods, for instance. So we do a lot of, sometimes we even get to do our own implementation of things, which is nice. And then when that's done, we also check designers' changes to make sure that they won't break the game and that they actually work in the bugs. Right? So that's pretty much the best rundown I can give for a day or just any of those things.
And the live balance team is different from the design team, right? They're two separate units.
Yeah.
So your task is more of tweaking what's already been put in play by the design team. How much interaction do you have with the design team?
So the live design team particularly does deal with mostly the champions that are on live. And then in the last little while of a champion's development, we'll be able to consult them on like, will this character fit into the live game? What numbers needs to be done? So like Hecarim and Varus, there's a lot of number tweaking with those guys when they come out. They're the live design team.
So have you, I mean, you haven't been there very long, but you probably know, have champions that have kind of gotten all the way made and then hit your stage of the live design team, have they gotten scrapped at that point for being too powerful, or do they normally get scrapped a bit early?
A lot of times if a champion just doesn't work, it's mainly about just not being fun or not fitting into the game, and they'll usually catch on to those things really early on. So in my experience, pretty much any champion that's made it to the point, it's pretty much set, and it's usually pretty good.
So now that you've come into Riot, you have obviously you're one of the best junglers probably in the world, in League of Legends. So, I'm sure you have a lot of ideas about, so when you came in, what were your kind of priorities going in to make the game more fun? Did you have anything that you had in mind that maybe surprised Riot when you came in? Or?
I didn't really have particularly anything in mind. Most of the stuff was talked about in the interviews. I have a really extensive interview process, so I pretty much exhausted all my ideas at that point. And I was just coming in with an open mind of like, what can we find and fix next, and how to react to certain things as the mindset. I didn't go in with any kind of agenda of what I wanted to change.
So what are some of the changes you've worked on that we've seen, like maybe in this upcoming patch, for example?
Well, yeah, really just everything in the patch is sort of a collaborative effort, right? So like everyone will talk about the changes, certain people will propose different changes, but like the experience change, for instance, is something I had, is the bounty change is something I had a bit of time working on. Like previously, the bounty capped at 500 gold, and the way it counted up to the bounty, it would count to like 500 or like 477 that is capped at 500 randomly. Now the bounty is actually at 600, so it's at 8 kills you hit your full 600 bounty, and it scales up like very precisely, so it's never like step, 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 it's barely capped, it steps perfectly up to 600 and stops, right? So that was something that QA came in and was like, we need to make this just right, and we were able to do that.
Sounds great. I'm really looking forward to the new system. I think it sounds like
it's not much different. It's just to give a little bit more reward for killing someone on a huge killing spree. Because way back in the day it was at 1,000, and then we took it down to 500. So it's like we might have taken it just a little too far, so it's gone back to 600.
So are there any champions that you're looking to make some changes on that you can talk about, or just in general, like can you say like some champion is looking very strong right now and we're looking into it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's certain things that we have kind of on watch for what we're looking to change. I don't know when you're going to release this video because the patch comes out on Tuesday. We've been leaking the crap out of it in PAX so it really doesn't matter too much, right? Like we have a lot of quality of life changes coming in lately. So we have a big problem with power creep pretty much. So it's like you don't want to have power. You still want to make people excited to play the new champions. So what we've been doing a lot of is sort of quality of life buffs to just make the character not necessarily a buff, but just make them smoother and more exciting so people want to play them again, right? So you do little tiny usability tweaks like Swain's auto attack things and change so it's easier last time, right? Just little things like that make them exciting.
Sweet. So let's switch gears for a minute and start talking about the professional scene and what's going on. I don't think either of us has seen a lot of IPL because we've been here all weekend.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I've been reading about it as much as I can. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody at this point, even us here and not watching the games have heard about the triple support that your old team, ggChronicle's, is running. But really, I think, the story of like 2012 has been the rise of Empire, now M5, and how well and how dominant they have looked at international competitions like Kiev and Hanover, where really, it seemed like only CLG was going to be capable of kind of throwing a wrench in their gears. So, like, what do you think that M5 is doing that other teams lack, and how can other teams rise to their level or counteract what they're doing and beat them?
I think one thing M5 is doing, more so than like their tactics or their in-game play, is just they're approaching the game like professionals. They show up a week early to events, they get acclimated to the environment, mainly playing on the machines, right? They have specific strategies that they're only going to bring out in tournaments, or even only in the finals, right? So like we had ggChronicle's in this last IPL tournament, they brought out their triple support thing, which was awesome, right? And they beat COG with it in the like semifinals of the winners bracket, and then when they went up against TSM, it just got banned out, and they didn't seem to have anything left. Right, so it's the professional approach to the game is one of the things that make M5 so effective.
Well, I think that, ggChronicle's obviously your old team. A lot of the guys are students.
Right.
Boy was still in high school. Like,
they definitely get a bunch of practice time in, but it's really hard to match up to someone who can do it for them.
That's right. Yeah, right. For sure. So, and we've also seen an increase in performance of TSM recently, and they got their new coach. And do you think that maybe that approach fits into that professional mold where they're trying to really kind of kick themselves into a more vigorous and focused practice schedule and regimen?
Yeah, I think TSM, COG, M5, even ggChronicle's are all moving, and Curse are all moving more towards the professional standard that M5 is setting. And I think it was Average Gatsby came out a little while ago on the league forums, made this awesome post that said the day of the casual professional is probably over now that M5 is so dominated. And we're really seeing that filter through all the teams as they become more and more serious about the game.
So you see with M5, you see a lot of really interesting plays, and there's been a lot of talk recently about you have the football plays, and you set up plays for very specific situations, and that takes an extreme degree of planning and coordination.
Or even sort of cheese strategies that you'd see in StarCraft 2 is kind of what M5 did way back in Kiev. It's a cheese strat of having gang playing solo red buff, teleport back to base, and then teleport to a lane with red buff and 7 health potions.
Yeah.
That is a cheese strat, right? Because you're not going to be able to pull it off every time, but it's in very specific situations it gives a bunch of advantages.
So yeah, you think that these other teams are going to come up, because like you said, the support strat was more, that we saw from ggChronicle's, was more of a whole, a big picture strat. Right. And M5 can run standard comps, but at the beginning of the Hanover finals, we saw that amazing invade and roaming Alistar that was just that 1-2 from Lee Sin and Alistar, and that was it. But that's gave them the advantage they needed to
snowball the rest of the game. I think there's going to be a lot more teams striving towards that, because innovation is always great, and you usually win once or twice with it until everyone else comes. So now that people have been they realize M5 is catching people off guard with these sort of somewhat wanky strategies, wonky strategies, other teams are hopefully going to be coming up with that. And I think there's a lot of room for little stuff like that in the wing teams.
So are there any champions you feel that are very strong right now, but that might be underplayed by the professional scene because none of the pro players, might play X, Y, Z champion?
Right. I think one of the situations where we have a lot of really strong characters are our AP mids, necessarily. There are a lot of really viable AP mids, which also means that there's super good AP mids that just aren't played because we have pro players who have learned their 5 or 6 or 7 AP mids. They just don't have enough room to extend out to the rest of them.
Yeah, for me, one of the ones that really comes to mind is Jatt, and I think it's because he's very strong, but he plays so differently than other AP mids, and I think that it's not as easy of an adjustment, and positioning is the whole thing. Do you think that if some of the pro players were to get good as Jatt, he would be a really viable champion?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's a player, Kenix, I think, who's a 15-year-old player, but he's played hundreds of games as Jatt, and I was talking to him, he just now got good at it, and yet he does crush people. It's like that with Jatt, it's like that with Victor, it's like that with Lux. When people get good at these characters, they're just as good, if not better, than the ones that are good.
So, Tom who's here, who's here with me behind the camera. He and I have been playing Varus and Hecarim this weekend, and I sat down and was playing Hecarim, and he seems to me to be potentially ready for a competitive play, because it seemed to be that Trinity Force is a very good item on him, because it basically it gives him it does everything well on him.
It has a lot of support.
Yeah. But even though Trinity Force is so good, it seems like there are some other interesting builds. You could build him tanky. I tried doing Gold for 5, Philostone, and then Heart of Gold into Aegis and Shirelias, and so he can bring more utility that way. So it seems like he's a very versatile champion. Do you think that he's going to see a competitive play in the near future?
I think he will, but I am removed from the competitive scene a bit, so I can't say for sure. I think he definitely has a lot of things that competitive players like. He's got a very large engagement range with his ultimate, and his ultimate flies 1,000 or 1,100 units, right? He has lot of upfront burst damage, so he can really enter a fight and get on top of whoever he wants at the start of the fight, which competitively is really, really valuable.
Yeah.
Right? Not to mention he is a fairly fast jungler as well as a decent jungler, right? So I see him, like, when I go on live, I'm going to try to play this game.
Yeah, it also seems to me that with his W that gives him the heal back for the damage dealt, that he would be valuable, maybe like a double AP card.
Right, there's a lot of potential in that skill, right? It's 20% damage, well, it's like 10 to 25. The numbers aren't obviously released defined yet, right? Of everyone around him, damage they take. So in a big AoE team fight, his health could just shoot up in that first seconds against the wall.
So it seems like, you know, he can kind of just dive in, absorb all of the cooldowns on everybody's skills, and then immediately rise back up.
If they time it just right, it can be the super clutch thing.
I was really excited by that. So what do you think about Varus? Do you think he's going to be, you know, you think he seems a lot like Kog'Maw to me in the way that he doesn't really have an escape?
In that regard, he's a bit like Kog'Maw, but he's also an AD carry with very few steroids. So he's sort of a ranged AD caster in a sense. He's got a lot of emphasis on landing his abilities. So people who get really good at him can potentially be really strong with him, but he's going to be kind of hard to get. No steroids, so he's naturally in game scaling. He'll still be the land abilities to get things off. So because he's so much of a caster, there's a small chance he gets a lot of the time as well as possible.
Interesting point.
So it's just stuff like that that we're trying to keep track of and make sure something goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about using embarrassment, but I can definitely see how that might work against certain comps. Yeah, that's really great. I mean, we do see something like that. And I guess I was more envisioning like you have to, like Kog'Maw, you might be able to like protect the Varus.
Probably not though, just because he doesn't have steroids and he's all about landing his abilities. He's like a utility-based AD caster.
Yeah, it's really something unique that we haven't really seen much of before.
That's why it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, thanks a lot, Jatt, for sitting down and talking with us for a few minutes. Yeah, and just real quick, you know, I think you're going to be looking to cast more tournaments in the future, and do you know if Ryan's planning on sending you anywhere soon to do some casting?
I'm not sure about all those things. They did send me to PAX, which was awesome.
And he has been casting here a lot.
And I think so. I casted 4 hours, pretty much 3 days in a row, so my voice is a little raspy.
Yeah.
Need to work on that a bit, a little more endurance. Other than that, I hope to do it in the future, but we'll see what happens.
Thanks all for your time. I really appreciate it. Cheers.